And welcome back to the Here For It Live broadcast. I'm Catherine Hover, the purveyor of fun and founder of the Palette community. This show is my chance to talk one-on-one with inspiring members of the Palette community and beyond about how to show up as your authentic self in career and in life. And today, my guest is Joelle. I'm so excited to have you here. We've probably met probably a year ago. Seems like it's about a year, right?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, and so you are a certified relationship mentor and coach, and I kind of like want to just dive right in because I think a lot of the times we think relationships and we think marriage, or we think romantic relationships, and you also help with the other relationships too. So siblings, family, parents. So I always want to make that very clear. And then the other thing I would like to, I'm sure we'll address this, but this work is like an ongoing thing. It's not something that you only you don't just reach out to Joelle when you're in the thick of like contemplating separation and it's crisis mode. This is the kind of stuff, and Joelle's somebody that you should reach out to when things are going well and you feel confident and you're doing well. So tell us more about your practice and how you got started and more about you.
I so appreciate that lens of ongoing work because that is one of my core values is continual growth and development, and every opportunity and engagement in a difficult conversation or a challenging interaction is an opportunity to just see, oh, I can grow here too. So for me, it's a constant. So there's always a personal component to it in terms of relationships, whether it be romantic, whether it be professional, whether it be familial, whether like you're having conflict with a neighbor, right? Or just asking for a raise, standing in your value, using your voice, full authentic expression. There's always a new growing edge. So I did not start here. I started as a doormat.
Oh, haven't we all been there?
Yeah. So yeah, I started as a doormat and then made a decision at some point that I was not going to take any of this to the grave with me. And so made lots of decisions to educate myself, to be in communities, to get the support that I needed to be able to grow myself up, to mature into what I call mature into my strengths. Right. I'm also highly sensitive. Which adds another dimension to the work that I do. I tend to be highly intuitive, empathic, deep thinking, deep feeling. I'm great with attention to detail. There's lots of skills and strengths that I bring to the table. I also come from an education background. So for me, training is massively important. So the work started with me just as a coach. I was working with women to transfer from their one job to another job because at that point I was working as a teacher and I didn't like it. And I thought if I can coach somebody out of their job into a new position, maybe in that coaching, they can teach me how to do it for myself. And then back in like 2010, I realized after having my heart massively broken, deep dark night of my soul, I realized that was the work that I wanted to do because I was not going to be in love. I was not going to have love in my life. And I was also realizing that it was totally possible. So
And that
that's
it's up to you, right? Like there's something in your head that you have to be willing to say, I deserve this. I deserve to have love. I deserve to be happy. I deserve to feel joy. And you kind of have to take yourself out of that victim state.
absolutely because there was evidence out there of couples having what I wanted, it was possible. Like in my mind, I'm like, it's out there. I see it. There's evidence that it's possible. So I'm going to go do what I need to do to find it. And what that meant was going on a 9-month journey of dating lots of guys, only because I felt really crappy about men in general, because my experience had been that they had an agenda that wasn't my agenda, that wasn't supportive to me. So in that 9-month journey, I dated a lot of guys, and I wouldn't go out with them unless they knew what I was up to. And I basically would say to them, listen, I'll go out on a date with you, but I'm not interested in a relationship right now. I don't feel positively about you as a gender, and I want to change my mind about you. Are you still open to dating? Lots of guys ran for the hills because they thought I was a complete wackadoodle. And then those who stayed, and we had a great time. And my goal was always to leave them better than I found them. So
Wow. So
whether it was
this was like a
yeah,
really intentional like project that you took on.
correct. It was a 9-month project. My husband came out of that project.
Wow. That's
He's
so
still
cool.
researching.
Yeah, well, that's the other piece of it that, I mean, I think I kind of already told this, how it's like ongoing work, and you don't need this help just when things are in crisis mode, but it's also, the work is never over, like there are things that are going to come up, years and years down the road. And I'm not talking from like expert perspective here. I'm just aware that like this is just the middle of the story here. I'm married 10 years. My husband and I met in college. And if I knew, I don't know if I would have done if I would have, committed to marriage, if I would have known how much turbulence there would be. And just like, I mean, not to say that we don't have our highs, we do, but man, the lows are low too. And it's an ongoing evolution, as we continue to learn more about each other and give ourselves the opportunity to show up for each other and rely on each other. And it's definitely, it's a roller coaster. I mean, I would say it's more like a Ferris wheel, it's like, it's either up or it's down. There's like, it's hard I'm a very extreme person too, so it's hard for me to just coast and just be like in this middle ground place. It's like, it's either really good or really bad.
But what I really appreciate about what you just shared was the willingness to stay with it, right? Because like people think there's that whole adage of like, marriage, carriage, whatever. Like it's just like then you're done, right? It's like once you get married, the fairy tales have that like they walk off into the sunset, but they don't tell you about the diapers and the arguments and the negotiations and the conflicts and everything that's going to happen beyond that. But we are sold this bill of goods that when we find the ideal person, then we'll be happy. And then there's no conversation about what happens later. So I really appreciate that you and your husband are in this continual sort of like back and forth of like, are we still in? Are we still in? Are we still in? Right? How do we get through this conflict? What is required here? How do I keep my heart open? How do I stay connected to you through conflict? How does that even happen? Right? And all of that is skill set.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that that putting yourselves, and I'm notorious for this, like putting ourselves in like situations that are uncomfortable, or having the conversations that are uncomfortable. And I'm just like a poke the bear kind of person, where I'm like, well, and I love hypotheticals. Like, well, what would you do if this happened? And what would we do if this were to go down, And I know that drives them crazy, but it also allows for us to, get to know each other better. And, the other thing that we say in the midst of, really difficult times is like, as long as the recovery is short-lived, that's when we know we're improving. I mean, we would get into arguments and not speak to each other for, and it was like awkward because, we live together, we have kids, and so it's difficult, but we would just be like scathing, angry at each other, and it would go on for weeks. And to the point where you forgot what you were even arguing about. I also have dementia, where I'm like, why were we so upset with each other that time, And I just think it's like every opportunity to kind of like learn more about the other person, and also, again, give them the opportunity to navigate it with you, because it's not always it's just not always a simple solution, or half the time that he doesn't even know he pissed me off.
Yeah. No, and that's so important. Like, you and I were talking before we went on live. I'm doing a lot of work with my family of origin. They live in Europe. They live in France. And much of the work that I do and the training that I do with my clients has to do with socialized, conditioned family of origin work, so constellations work and really deep introspective work. And so until those stories are changed, you can't change the relationships that you're in. You're just going to continually repeat patterns that may not even be patterns that you started, but are maybe brought down from lineage. The work that I do with my clients is to kind of like draw that line in the sand, just like I did for myself. Not taking this to the grave with me, not happening.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to change this dynamic. We're going to change this, right? So because for me, there's a greater picture at hand, which is, for me, I'm changing it not just for my parents and myself, but for my son and for the great grandchildren I will never even see. So 7 generations hence. So I know that the work that I do for myself, with my parents, with my clients, will transform everything in my lineage, forward and backwards, in all directions of time. So for me, it's like a bigger vision. And if I can be in my strengths and I can train and support other people in being in their strengths when it comes to engaging in relationships and staying connected, then we have a much more mature group of men and women, right? Because I work with both, actually making decisions where it matters, right? Where it matters in matters, in global matters, right? So like we look at, and even how like we're engaging with this, how it is, how people are responding to the situation in the Ukraine, right? So if you're like la 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 la, I don't want to hear about it. Well, how's that connected to the way that you dealt with things in your family? Right? Or if
Yeah.
it's like, or I can't handle it, right? Just noticing.
Or it's the opposite, where you're like, you're so entrenched and you're so engaged and you're like, oh my God, the world is ending and I'm so impacted by this. I mean, yes, like, aren't we all?
Yes.
But
Yes.
also you have to be able to take a step back and say, what can I do? What can I control? What can I not have any impact on? And not just not, I hate to say stay in your lane because I never do, but but just an awareness that, it's again, it's a complicated situation. And I mean, I hate to say this, but it's like, it's relationships, and it's like assumptions made, and we're constantly trying to figure out, like, getting into these leaders' heads, and we are not inside their heads. We do not know what they're thinking. We don't have, insight into a lot bigger things, and so you have to remind yourself that, like, you're here, you're doing the best you can, and then, so I feel like it can go both ways.
Absolutely. But just the moment of like the reaction itself, if you have enough awareness and you can go like, whoa, that's so interesting. I want to go all in. How did I do that in my family of origin? How did I try to harmonize or try to placate or try to people please? Right? How did I try to like go all in? So that this is a microcosm, how you're reacting to say this particular situation. How is that a microcosm of what you experienced as a child and then are maybe acting out in your relationships now? So just like that place of awareness. And I use, different elements in my work, one of which is, traditional coaching, right? So but I also have an entire curriculum of trainings that a client will receive a training a month. And these trainings are based on trends that I'm seeing in the clients that I've taught, that I've worked with, as well as in the world. So I create trainings every month based on the trends that I'm seeing, so that will then support my clients. And the other element that I use is art. So intentional creativity and expressive arts, to be able to kind of enter into awareness kind of through the side door, because when you're doing creativity, it kind of just happens, and you don't have to really work on it. And then a lot of ahas will happen in that space. And of course, there's a lot of accountability. But like what I do is not dating. I'm not here to match you up with somebody. What I do is clean your side of the street up, so then you can then be in the relationships and have the intimacy and connection that you want with another human being from a more mature, strengths based place.
And emotional intelligence, right? Like
Absolutely.
you help your clients arm themselves with the emotional intelligence and the tools to strengthen that. And so when you're in an argument or where you're feeling taken advantage of, you can be, you just be more aware of it when it is your shit and when it's not, when there's their shit.
Yeah, I find it so interesting that you use the word arm themselves, because I invite them to do the absolute opposite, to drop the armor, right? Because we're so used to being armored up, right? And God forbid if anybody sees you've got a chink in your armor, right? Like you're weak, and then there's all that posturing. Look at social media, right? So the idea that with the work that I do is that you drop and you drop and you drop to the essence of who you are, so that when you connect with this other individual, it's a heart based place. There is no dirt, there's no backstory stuff. There's just like clean, clear connection.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and I think like again, I've just like from my experience, the moment that I really like, I don't even think I heard about emotional intelligence until probably 6 years in, to being married, and that's a shame. But obviously that's like a whole nother conversation. But it's like the strengthening your ability to be vulnerable and to just be who you are and be honest with yourself and your partner about what's happening or what's going on. The other thing that I think I've really been working on is just like not reacting, like when there's something that happens, it's like you can just like not react and just give yourself a moment to breathe and to think about it, and or not think about it, but just do nothing. I'm such an action person, like, oh, we got to do something, or we have to talk about it, we have to plan this. And I have found that there are times when it's just there's nothing to do but to just like step away and separate and just breathe.
Yeah. Not taking an action is an action.
So true. So true.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good thing for me to remember because I forget that sometimes.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything. We're not doing anything. We have to go to work or whatever, It's just like action, do. And you're right. I mean, I've actually had this like this is maybe has nothing to do with this, or maybe it does, but I had like a horrific back pain for the last probably 5 or 6 weeks that I have just been struggling with this. And I started seeing a movement coach that Marcella referred me to. And literally all we do is breathe because I don't know how to breathe properly. And so it just is kind of like a window into like, I'm holding my breath all the time, not breathing, and it's affecting me physically.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? That if you're not like bringing breath into different parts of your body, it'll get stuck, right? And so
Yeah,
some
yeah.
of like blocking, so you're using somatics to be able to do that. So, and I use a little bit of that also, but the artwork is a place where we unlock, right? So where things happen in this sort of flow state, right? So that unlocking happens there.
Yeah, so I also have Saratoga Paint and Sip. I don't know if you knew this about,
I
and
do.
this happens all of the time where people like they just come in and they're so stressed out and they're so just tense about doing something new. They haven't painted since they were in second grade, and sometimes like we don't even have time for this. Like I am busy or I'm stressed or whatever, and it's like 10-15 minutes in, their shoulders drop and they breathe. And obviously, there's a little liquid encouragement also. But my point is that it's so therapeutic, and people don't even realize what's happening because they're just not aware of it. We're just so busy in our lives that we don't stop to take a breath and to do something new. And it's unbelievable what can be unlocked. And I was reading one of the reviews on your website, and it was Claire, and she said that her laser session with you, and just she said I brought a problem to our session that I felt stuck, and during the session felt it loosened its grip. So it was just like this unlocking thing that happens when you're in a session together. And so I'd love for you to talk more about that. How you're almost like little MacGyver, you're unlocking things that you don't even realize needed unlocking.
So as I shared earlier, I'm highly sensitive. And so one of my very, very big strengths is deep listening, which makes sense why I would be a coach, right? So I ask more than I say. So in a session, I'm not just listening for the words, but I'm also listening for the words. Like even when you were speaking and I said, oh, interesting, you said armor, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking and I'm hearing deeply for all these little clues, right? That are like energetic clues, but also like language clues, which is the work of constellations, right? Because the language that we use is passed down. So for me, I'm constantly listening for what's being said, but then what is in between what's being said that is not being said that we can dot connect to. And it is in using that skill of deep listening, following my intuition, and then also empathy, which is being able to put myself in the other person's shoes without sacrificing my own energy, which is a skill set in itself, right? Because as an empath, some you may have spoken to empaths who are like, oh my God, I can't go into a room because I feel everyone and everything. So there's a lot of work that I do about keeping things clean so that you can keep your heart open and feel, but know that it's not yours. So I bring that whole set of skills that I have naturally, but also I've honed in over the years to a container to support in unlocking all of that. I can kind of feel into what needs to happen next. I don't have to have an agenda with people because I can just feel into what's the right sign, what's emerging here that wants exploration.
Oh my God, this is so fascinating. And then for you to bring it back to like previous generations and home life and how your, family communicated to you. Oh my God, I'm absolutely fascinated by this. So tell us, so you have some programs that are running now and you have some spots open that people could slip into to get started to work with you, like now?
Yes, I don't take a lot of clients because the work that I do is narrow and deep. And so I have two spots in my client base right now. And the work that I do is year long, if not longer. I've had clients work with me for like 5 years or more. Just because once we unlock one part of things, then it's like, oh, then there's the next level. Then we get to explore that, and then the next level. So it just kind of like it's like a pebble in the water, right? You start here, or you think you start here, right? And then we go differently, and then it unlocks all these other ripples out to different parts of one's life. So I have two spots available for my coaching program. So I have 3 levels that people can work with me at. And that's based on, investment, time commitment, etc. So yeah, I have 2 spots available for anyone who feels like the work that we've been talking about is resonant. As I said, I'm not a dating coach, and I go narrow and deep quickly. So for those of people who are interested in doing the real work of transformation, right? So I don't just give information. Information is not transformation, but your engagement with that information does create the transformation. So I'm looking for people who have skin in the game, because I'm just not going to work with anyone who's just like, oh yeah, that'd be nice to work with as well. No, you have to be willing to do the real work. So that's kind of who I'm looking for
Yeah,
as
and you
clients.
don't do you work with couples? Or I kind of want to talk about that too, because a lot of times, like, and I've heard girlfriends say this, so we need couples counseling, and I always feel like you don't necessarily need that. Like, you don't necessarily need the other party to engage, maybe not yet, right? Like, you probably need some work on yourself and work with like on your own shit, right? And like you said, getting stuff cleared up on your side of the street before you can now move into, you know, working together so because I think again, this is again from my perspective, my experience. There was a time where like I didn't, he didn't want to come with me. I was like, oh, well, we need to do this. We need to do this. Like, no, actually, we didn't need to do that at that point. At that point, I needed to work on myself and my own shit and my own boundary issues and poking the bear and just I had so much work to do on myself first. So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
No, I appreciate that. And I would say that I've never worked with couples, but if I were to work with couples, it would be 3 different kinds of sessions, right? 2 for each individual, 1 for each individual, right? Because they have to do their own personal work, and then the work of their relationship. So if you look at relationship as a third entity, right? There's the one person in the couple, there's the other person in the couple, and then there's the relationship. And so that would be more of my approach.
Cool. So so how can people, is it going to your website, joelleyden.com, the best way to get a hold of you? Joelle's a member of Palette. So if you ever want me to connect you, I absolutely can. You're all over the place. You're on LinkedIn, like Facebook, Instagram, all the places.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So the best way to reach out to me would be through the website. There is a work with me page. It'll tell you a little bit about how I work, the 7 sort of steps that I use to work with a client. And then you can fill in an application. When I review the application, right, then we can set up an appointment. So basically, once you fill the application, I can then suss out if we're a fit for one another. Right.
Yeah, I love that because not everybody will be a good fit. And
exactly.
even with Palette, there are people that we sit down with that want to join this community. Maybe they need co-working, maybe they need the community aspect of it, and a lot of the work that we do and connections we make. But they're not ready to do it. They're not ready to put themselves out there. They're not ready to show up. And half of it is showing up and being ready to take on the new adventure that comes along with, whatever that's going to be unlocked and uncovered when you meet all the people here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it saves time for both of us, because then I can also match them with somebody who could be a fit for them, right? Because I said the work that I do is deep and we go deep quickly. But if that's not somebody's jam, then I can refer them to somebody else, right? I don't want to leave anybody out in the cold without a resource or support.
Yeah, I love it. And such a great place to stop, because I feel like you said it just perfectly. Everyone, if you're interested in Joelle, learning more about her, by all means, go to our website. I put it in the comments, and reach out to her. You're lovely to speak to via Zoom or in real life. You just have just this energy about you that's just so calming and just fascinating to speak to and learn from. So thank you for sharing yourself with us. And tune in again. We have another Here For It live program on Friday, and I can't wait to see you all then. And I can't wait to see you again soon, Joelle. Keep in touch.
Thank you, Catherine, for the opportunity. So appreciate it.